So good morning, guys. Good morning, everyone. So in this session, so in the previous sessions, I gave three demos. Like in the first session, I explained about the training program and the roadmap for the training. And in the second demonstration, I have set up JMeter on your machines, right? And yesterday's demonstration, like I have set up sample application. I shared this WebTools application to you. So this is one of the sample applications that we'll be covering in scripting. So let me quickly show you what are the other applications that we will be using for scripting is. These are the scripting scenarios and different applications that we'll be using for scripting. WebTools is only one of the sample applications. So apart from that, I will cover Blaze demo, Konacard, JPEG Store, AOS, and based on the time, I will cover this Orange HRM MyStore. And these are all these are sample applications from here to here. These are sample applications, and these are real-time applications that I will be covering in scripting, as I explained previously. Okay? And these two applications will be given in scripting test. There are bit complex scripts where you may need to write some custom code. Actually, we need to write some code here. So, and these will be given in few companies interviews if they have scripting test. Yeah. So I will share the sample applications to you as we progress in the sessions. So in this session, I want to start with a few, KYC, know your computer, right? So generally KYC, general meaning of KYC is know your client. So here, as it matches with our technology, I named it as know your computer. Yes. If you like it, like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just for regarding purposes, I'm doing some self-promotion here. Okay. So first thing is, like, every software engineer should know is let me cover few computer basics or computer fundamentals which every software engineer should know. Right? So the first one is IP address. So can you tell me, like, how to check the IP address of your machine, everyone? Can you please check your IP address and ping in the Zoom chat, guys? Please join from laptop. Please don't join from mobile. Please join the session from your laptops. And if you need to buy a new laptop, please I can share the laptop buying guide, like what configuration is required for you for these trainings. Please check with me. If you already have an idea, well and good. Otherwise, please check with me. Okay. Please, can you please post your IP address in Zoom chat, guys? Please make it fast. Let me show you, guys. So this is how we have to check, right? So open a command prompt in Windows operating system. So you open a command prompt and type ipconfig. Type ipconfig. And if you are connected to through Wi-Fi, right? You have to check it here. Right now I am connected to my Wi-Fi. So you have to check it over here, IPv4 address. My IP address is 192.168.0.134. It should be read as O, guys, right? So it should not be read as 0, but it should be read as O. 192.168.0.134. Please read it as dot, right? But not point. Please don't read it as point. Please read it as dot. Clear? If you are connected through a LAN cable, right? If you are connected to with the LAN cable, this becomes your IP address, by the way. Here you see, right? Ethernet adapter, V Ethernet, right? If you are connected through LAN cable, this will become your IP address. However, I am connected to my Wi-Fi router. So this is my IP address. Clear, guys? Now, so what is IPv4 and IPv6? So currently IPv4 is still running. However, IPv6 is introduced. So we know all, like, I'll just give some analogy, some example. So initially we used to have mobile numbers starting with number 9, isn't it? Guys, when mobile was introduced, like when we so the initially we used to have mobile numbers starting with number 9, isn't it? Yes. So once all the numbers are exhausted, we have 8 series and then 7 series and 6 series now. So in the same way, because all the IP addresses of IPv4 are exhausted, so right now, like IPv6, so V6 is introduced. IPv6 came into picture. Clear, guys? So that is about IPv4 and IPv6. Here you can see this is IPv6 address, and IPv4 will have 4 set of numbers separated by dots, and here IPv6 address will have actually 8, I remember. Okay, so let me show you. Okay, I'll come to that in a moment. Let me reorder this. Right? The next thing you have to know is what is private IP and what is public IP, right? So this is nothing but our private IP, guys. Whatever you see here, this IPv4 address, this is our private IP. And what is public IP? So let me explain what is the difference between public IP and private IP, right? What is the difference between private IP and I have muted everyone as there is some background noise. If you want to ask some query, please unmute yourself, please. Right? So first, let's understand what is the difference between a private IP and public IP. So whatever you have pinged me in Zoom chat, right? That is your private IP. What you checked from your command prompt, right? So this is your private IP. So private IP means nothing but this is internal to your network. This is internal to your network. Then what is my public IP? See, let me give some analogy here. So private IP is something like if you are staying in an apartment, multi-storied apartment, private IP is something like your apartment number, flat number. Okay. And what is public IP then? So when someone asks your address, right? So you will say your building name or your plot number, isn't it? Guys, can you please respond? So if someone within your apartment asks where do you stay, you'll tell your flat number. Yeah, because they are they are your neighbors and they stay in the same. If they stay in the same apartment, you will tell the flat number, apartment number, right? Whereas if if an outsider asks your address, you will tell your building name or your plot number, right, along with your area. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right. So public IP is something like that. So public IP means what is the IP address? What is our IP address to the external world? That is your public IP. And please remember, private IP, whatever you see here, this is within your network, Okay. So when more than one device, see, when there are multiple devices connected to your Wi-Fi network, say for example, you have one laptop or one or two laptops and one or two mobiles connected to your network, to your Wi-Fi network. So each device will have a separate IP address. Even your mobile will have some separate private IP. Okay. And now, so however, this is within your network, local to your network, to your Wi-Fi. Okay. And what is this public IP? So public IP is something which is your IP address, with which you are visible to the external world. Right? Means out of your network. So how to check the public IP? So there are multiple ways to check that. So you can type this, whatismyip.com, what is my IP address, or Google for what is my IP address, and click on the first link and you will see your public IP. See, this becomes your public IP. All right. There are multiple websites that shows that. Here you can see that clearly. My public IPv4 is 103.140.231.38. Right? Okay. This is the same thing, right? However, it is not showing that this is public IP. That's why I have shown this website. Yes. So please, make a note of this website, or else you can bookmark it. So this is your public IP address. So this is the IP address with which you will be visible to the external world. And here it provides a few other important information. So it is showing my IP location, Nanakram Guda, TG for Telangana, India, and ISP is Zoom Fiber Solutions. ISP stands for Internet Service Provider. Perfect. Right. So this is the public IP. This is how we can check the public IP. So these are all computers basics that every software engineer should know, right? Not only performance test engineers, but whether you are a software developer or a software test engineer, right? Any software engineer should know these basics. What is public IP? What is private IP? What is IPv4? What is IPv6? And how to check the IP address and how to check the host name. So next, let me show you how to check the host name. Most of you may be knowing already, but however, as I have some freshers, I have to cover this. I'll be covering this in the initial sessions in the today's demo session. So this is my host name. So this is one way. So just type in the command prompt, type host name, and you'll see your computer name. This is one way to check the host name, or else there are a couple of other ways also. So you can open a Windows Explorer and right click on this PC and click on properties. So you can check your device name here also. You can check your computer name here also, right? And this particular window shows you like what is your processor configuration, right? How much RAM is installed on your machine, and few other info: device ID, product ID, system type, what operating system it is right installed on my machine. Here you can see the operating system, and here it shows like whether it is a 32-bit or 64-bit. My operating system is a 64-bit operating system, and here is my operating system, and that is install date and all these details, right? And observe here, everyone should know your processor. What is your processor? What is your RAM? Your system configuration basically, right? So i7 is my processor, and what is this guys? 979750. What information does it give? Anyone? I hope most of you know this. What information does it give? This number. i7 is the processor model, and what information does this give? Guys, anyone? So okay, so this tells you your processor generation. So this is a 9th generation i7 processor. This is a 9th generation i7 processor. This number tells you which generation processor is installed on this machine, and this is your CPU clock speed, right? And this is your RAM capacity, the capacity of RAM installed on your machine. So you can see the same information in Task Manager as well. Can you please open Task Manager on your machine? Everyone, please open Task Manager on your machine, guys. This information, you need to know this information. Every software engineer should know this, how to check this information, guys. Can you please open Task Manager and come to Performance tab and click on the CPU, right? So here also you can see the same information. Intel Core i7, 9th generation. This is 9th generation processor, and the clock speed of my processor is 2.6 gigahertz. And observe here, it is a 6-core processor, and there are 12 logical processors. Okay. And one more thing, like you should know your RAM configuration. As you can see here, the total installed RAM on my machine is 16 GB, out of which 4.4 GB is available. So here you can see the memory utilization or RAM utilization. Currently it's 71%. And this is my RAM speed, 2667 megahertz is my RAM speed. And observe here, it shows slots used 2 of 2. Sorry, excuse me. Right? So slots use 2 of 2 means generally any laptop will have 2 RAM slots. Desktop used to have 4 RAM slots. Laptops will have 2 RAM slots. So 2 of 2 slots use 2 of 2 means, what does that mean? What does that tell you? Yes, what information does that give you? You are on mute if you are speaking. If anyone is speaking, can you please unmute? Yes, please respond. Say yes or no, guys.
Yes,
you
sir.
know or don't know. So what information does it give? Slots use 2 of 2 means see the total capacity of the total installed RAM is 16 GB, and here it's saying slots use 2 of 2. That means I have two 8 GB RAM slots installed on my laptop. There are two slots. Any laptop will have two slots, two RAM slots. So out of which 2 of 2 are used. That means I have two 8 GB RAMs installed on my machine. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
And you should know what is your generation, processor generation, right? This is important information. So generally any less than 6th generation process will be slow. 6th generation processor, I mean, if it is i3, if you want to buy a new laptop, don't buy a laptop with i3 processor which is less than 6th generation. Okay, so please buy a laptop above 6th generation if you are buying some laptop, for this training purpose, if you are planning to buy something. Okay, guys, now let me go back to the slides. Okay. And port number. So I will explain this port number when we start with some sample applications. For now, please remember that these are software port numbers. Any computer will have it's like thousands of port numbers. These are software port numbers. We'll discuss those more in detail when we start with the scripting, right? And LAN and WAN. So LAN stands for local area network. Most of you will be knowing, right? WAN stands for wide area network, and ping. So the next important fundamental or basics that you should know is what is the purpose of this ping command. Okay. So let's say, for example, you want to every website or every, say for example, Amazon.in or Flipkart, every website will have some IP address, right? So if you want to see the IP address, you can use this ping command and type flipkart.com. Right? So this is the IP address for public IP of Flipkart servers, right? And in the same way, you can type ping@gmail.com. Or else if you have one more laptop connected in your network, right? So you can type ping and IP address of that machine. So just give me a second. I have one more laptop connected to my network. Let me check the IP address quickly. I'm pausing recording, guys. And the IP address of that machine is 192.168.0.157. So it may or may not be able to communicate. Yeah. So it's saying request timeout. So that means like remote connection, remote desktop connection, remote connection is not enabled on that computer. That is my office laptop actually. So however, so you can use this ping command to, if you want to communicate or if you want to check if the machine is down, up or running, or if you are able to connect to a machine, to other machine in the network, you can use this ping command. So here in this case, the request is timed out because maybe remote connection is disabled on that machine. That is my office laptop actually. One second, let me check my other personal laptop case. Just give me a second, please. Let me write. The next thing you have to know is, everyone should know, is FQDN. FQDN stands for fully qualified domain name, right? So this will be useful like when you are working in an organization. So many a times we come across this FQDN. We need to know what is the FQDN of our machine. Fully qualified domain name means your nothing but your machine name. So let's say, for example, this is the host name, right? So let me. This is my host name, right? So suppose this is your machine name in your office, right? So your FQDN will be something like this. Say for example, you are working for TCS. So your FQDN will be something like this. Your machine name followed by the domain, right? So this is how your FQDN looks like. Yes, I'll be sharing the PPT, Vijay. So once you confirm your joining, I'll be sharing the PPT to everyone, right? The next thing you have to know is firewall. So firewall is a mechanism like where your operating system protects your computer, your machine from any hacking attempts, right? And how to check this firewall, guys? you have to type firewall dot, how to see the firewall is in your Windows search box, type firewall.cpl. CPL stands for control panel. Okay, so CPL stands for control panel. Works. So this is the net IP address of my another personal laptop. Okay, so let me show you this ping command. Okay. Right now you can see I'm getting reply from that laptop, means I will be able to connect to I'm able to communicate with my other personal laptop which is connected to the same network. So this is how you get a response if you are able to communicate with the other machine in your network. Okay, the previous one, that this is my office laptop, so maybe because of some settings on that machine, so I'm unable to ping that machine. So however, this is my another personal laptop, guys. Is it clear, guys, everyone? So if you are able to communicate, you will get a response like this, reply from that type of machine, and you get like how many bytes response you got, and time in milliseconds. This is 6 ms means milliseconds, right? TTL means I think time to last byte. Okay, and you, so this confirms that I am able to communicate with my other personal laptop. Here, guys. And coming to this firewall, the next thing is firewall that you should know. This is Windows Defender firewall. So any operating system will come with a firewall. So basically, this firewalls helps you to here you can see Windows Defender firewall can help prevent hackers or malicious software from gaining access to your PC through the network, internet or a network. So this is the purpose of firewall. Firewall will be protecting your machine from any hacking attempts or malicious software from gaining access to your PC. And you have to always turn on this firewall, right? It should be like this, turn on Windows Defender firewall. Here, guys. The next thing you have to know is host file. What is host file in Windows operating system? Let me quickly show you where is the path of that host file. So you can open a Windows Explorer. Can you please do this, guys, along with me? Open Windows Explorer, Windows E. Type Windows E to open Windows Explorer. And go to your C drive. C Windows System 32. System 32, right? Drivers, etc. Go to etc. And this is where you have this host file. Let me open this with Notepad. So this is how your host file look like. So why I'm showing this host file is many a times we use this host file in our, when we are working, right? And this host file consists of this mappings actually. So 127, here you can see this is one important mapping, 127.0.0.1 local host. This is the default IP address of our machine. This is the default IP address of any machine, guys. For your machine, your default IP address of your machine will be 120, the same, 127.0.0.1. And this is the default name of your machine. Suppose you want to, for example, if you see here, right, 127.0.0.1, I named it as Dell XPS. Means I am giving some mapping, some name to my machine. So this is how you can do mapping. And now if you want to access some application on my machine, let me quickly show you something. I have one sample application running on my machine, which I have shown yesterday, guys. So this is Web2 application that I have running on my machine, right? I started that Web2 server. I'll explain this, what is this Web2 server and what is the purpose of that, how we are going to use that. Okay. So I started that server, and let me quickly open a PPT where I have listed out the steps in setting up that machine, that sample application. Yeah. So this is the IP, this is the URL of that application, of that sample application. Those who attended yesterday's session, you are aware of this. Eh? I'm typing that URL over here. So I am able to access that application, right? So observe here I gave localhost. Suppose which is the default name of my machine. which is defined in the host file. Here you can see, right? This comes by default, guys. I did not define it. This comes by default. You can check on your machine. If you open the host file in this path, can you please open host file in this path, guys, everyone? See Windows System 32 drivers etc hosts. Please go to this path and open the host file with Notepad++. Please install Notepad++ if someone don't have, right? So these are the software required for performance testing. Zoom meeting you already installed and you connected through Zoom meeting. And please install Notepad++, everyone. And those who want to learn LoadRunner also, please, I will share this trial version with everyone to your email address. And you need to have Java installed on your machine, because if you want to use JMeter on your machine, you should have Java installed, right? And now MySQL, Splunk, and Dynatrace, we will install this later on. Clear, guys? So MySQL is the sample database that we will be installing on our machine to execute some SQL queries, to practice basic SQL queries. Clear, guys? And coming back to this, observe here, I used localhost. Localhost is nothing but my local machine, right? Now, if I want to give some name to my computer, some other name to my computer in the host file. So I gave it here as Dell XPS, right? And now what I can do is, instead of localhost defined here, I can use the Dell XPS. And I can access the same URL without using localhost. Here, guys, just because I defined it in my local host, I'm able to access my application with the whatever computer name I have given here. Understood, guys? We'll be using this host file and we will be doing these mappings in many projects. Please remember that. So that's the reason I'm covering this host file. What is the location of the host file and what is the purpose of this host file?
Sir, one query here.
Vijay?
Yeah. So we will name it as and when we set up the device, or whenever we want to, we can change it.
Now we can change it whenever we want. We can change it. For example, let me show you something. Dell XPS. Let me name it as 7590. This is my actual model. Okay. I changed it just now and save the host file. So to change the host file, it should be in administrator mode. The file should be opened in admin mode. Right. So now I change the name, right? Now I will use that new name, Dell XPS 7590:1080 is the port number on which my sample application is running. I just now mentioned, right, port number, about port number. So this one. So in this case, my WebTours application, my sample application is running on this port number. Means it will be listening on this, that WebTours server will be listening on this port number for any incoming requests. Understood or no? Incoming request means, see, for example, here I am sending a request to the WebTours server. I'm asking to get this page for me to WebTours server, right? So now my WebTours server will be listening on this port number, and as soon as I send the request, it will listen on that port number. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so probably I need to restart my server. Restart my server. 1 second. Let me check that.
Sir, what is the main purpose of this?
I'll come to that. I restarted my server. Let me try that URL, new URL. Okay.
Kishore, I think the file is not saved.
Is it? Oh yeah, sorry. Thanks. So yeah, the file is not saved. Host file is not saved. That's the reason I'm not getting that page. Now you should see that page. Right? Now you can see the page. Is it clear, Vijay? So we can change it on the fly.
Yeah, sure. Got it. Thank you.
Change your machine. Yeah. And now in someone asked like in when do we need use this host file in a project, right? Say for example, if you want to if your application is run, if you want to access your application, your project which is running on QA environment or staging environment or something, so you may need to make these host file entries. You may need to make some entries in the host file. So that's the reason I want to explain this. There will be a file called host file in this location, and this is how we do that mapping. So basically, so why do we need to give names like this is because remembering or typing the IP address is a bit difficult, right? So this will be easy compared to that, isn't it? See, for example, you have an application running in QA environment, and it has some QA environment is nothing but one server, some servers in QA, right? So it's difficult to remember the IP address of that machine, right? But if you give some name like QA.com, some QA environment, QA env, right? If you give some name mapping like this, it will be easy to remember, isn't it?
Yes.
Right? So that's the reason we give these mappings. So because IP addresses are difficult to remember, we can map it with some name, map the machine with some name. Is it clear?
Yes, sir, clear. Thank you.
Right? And this is about host file in Windows operating system. And next basics that you should know is command prompt and elevated command prompt. Of course, everyone knows command prompt. Most of you may be knowing elevated command prompt also. So however, let me explain. So what is elevated command prompt, right? So elevated command prompt means command prompt with admin privileges, right? And generally, how do you open a command prompt? You open a run prompt, type Windows R, and you get this run window, and you type CMD here, and you open a command prompt. So this is a normal command prompt. Here you can see the title. Here you can see the title. See Windows System 32 cmd.exe. This will be the Windows title for normal command prompt. However, sometimes we may need to open a elevated command prompt, means command prompt with admin privileges. Suppose you want to install something or you want to execute some command. So you need to open a command prompt with admin privileges, right? And how to open that is you type CMD and use this run as administrator. As simple as that. Now, if you see the Windows title here, you can see administrator command prompt. This is nothing but this is called as elevated command prompt also. Here, guys, this administrator command. So now you will have admin rights. You can execute any command which requires admin rights to execute, right? So this is called as elevated command prompt. And Windows PowerShell. So when on Windows operating system, if you want to execute some commands, you need to execute from PowerShell. Okay. So let me quickly show you how to launch a PowerShell. Most of you may be knowing, so but let me cover this. But as we have some non-computer guys. So Windows PowerShell, here you can type power and you see this Windows PowerShell, and you can use this open or run as administrator. So this is Windows PowerShell. So for installing or for executing few commands, you need to use Windows PowerShell. So this is also kind of this is more advanced command prompt, I can say. Okay, so you can execute any command from this PowerShell. So this is all about Windows PowerShell and how to launch Windows PowerShell. Right? And these also most of you may be knowing. So however, let me repeat it quickly. So what is operating system? How to check your operating system and how to check your system configuration. I covered most of this already. So let me quickly repeat it. So you just go to this PC properties, and here you can see what operating system is installed on your machine and what is your system configuration. Here you can see your processor, RAM, and other details. There is. And additional clocks in Windows operating system, we will see this later, guys. So we'll be using these additional clocks when you are working in a project and if your client is in US or UK, right? So without having any confusion of their time zone, we can add some additional clocks. Here you can see on my machine, on the bottom right, you are seeing additional clocks added, right? The first one is local time, which is showing 9:05. and Eastern time and PST. I hope everyone is able to see that, right? Yes, are you, on the bottom right, are you able to see that? See, it is, I have added some additional
can see it,
clocks
I
and
can see it.
animation. Huh?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Right? So
Yes.
how you can add that is you can go to Task Manager or Toolbars, I think. Let me recollect. Settings. Okay, sorry, I forgot that. Does anyone remember where it, know where is that option? Toolbars, new toolbar, no, not new toolbar. 1 second, guys. Just right click on the time, date and time, and here you can see adjust date time. So in that window, particular window, you will see these additional clocks, add clocks for different time zones, right? So here, by default, this will be unchecked. You just check this, show this clock, and you can select the time zone, whatever time zone you want to show, you want to see every time. So you can select that corresponding time zone and give some name here like this, Eastern time, PST, and so on. So this will be useful when, like more when we are working for US projects or UK projects, right? So if you want to see at what time your clients will be online, or if you want to check something on your servers. So if you are working for a US project or UK project, so your servers also will be located in that time zone, right? So if you want to check the logs or if you want to correlate the logs, right? So you can use this, you can add this additional clocks and, or if you have some meetings to join, right? Generally, when they are sending a meeting, when US clients or UK clients, when they are sending meeting, they mention the time in in their time zone, right? Of course, when they send a meeting invite, our Outlook will automatically reflect in our time zone. So when they are speaking in their, when you are communicating with them, and if they will communicate in their time zone. So if you want to quickly map that, you can use this one. You can add these additional clocks. Many a times I found this useful. So this is about this additional clocks in Windows operating system. And remote desktop connection. So everyone should know what is meant by remote desktop connection and how to connect to a remote machine, right? And let me start resume recording. So if you want to connect to a remote machine, say for example, I told that I have one personal laptop at my home, right? So if I want to connect to that machine, right? You open a command prompt, you open a run prompt and type mstsc here, or else mstsc. This is one way. Let me show you this. mstsc stands for Microsoft Terminal Services Client. So you click on this to launch this remote desktop connection window, and you type the IP address of that machine, the other machine, right? Or of course, remote desktop connection should be enabled. Remote connection should be enabled on that machine, and you have to enter the username and password for that machine. Right here, you can see now it is initiating a remote connection. Means it is trying to connect to that remote machine, that other machine. Right. So you got this maybe because remote access to the server is not enabled on that machine. Otherwise, you will be able to connect. It will prompt for your username and password, and you will be able to connect to that machine. So this is where we use this remote desktop connection. The other way to launch is in the Windows search box, type remote, and you can use that shortcut, okay, to launch this remote desktop connection window. Clear, guys? And here you can enter the IP address and credentials of that machine to connect to that machine. Sorry for the delay. Yeah. So now coming back to the a few other basics, like you should know Windows shortcuts. Everyone should know these Windows shortcuts. So which I covered in the previous slide. I will be sharing this slide deck with everyone. These are the important very useful Windows shortcuts that everyone should know, right? So Alt Tab is for switching between open windows. You may be knowing this, guys. So however, I'm covering this for non-computers, guys. So Alt Tab is for suppose I want to switch to Excel. So this is how I can switch by using Alt Tab, right? By using this Windows shortcuts, guys. Here. And Windows D for desktop. If I want to see my desktop, I can use this shortcut Windows D together. Right now it has launched the Windows desktop. I can see my Windows desktop, isn't it? And Windows C for file explorer. If you want to open a new window or a file explorer, you can use Windows C on your keyboard. So this is how it looks like. It opens a file explorer. Okay? Please remember the shortcuts and start using these shortcuts. And suppose if I want to maximize the windows, let me use F11 and maximize this. So this is the purpose of, so you can see an enlarged view of your window, right? I used function F11 on my keyboard. Here guys, so this is to maximize window. And everyone knows these shortcuts, even kids know this shortcut. And quick access. So one thing you have to know is, whenever you use Control-C or Control-X, it will be copied to something called clipboard on your machine. There will be something called clipboard on, there will be some memory allocated for that, for the clipboard. So whenever you use Control-C or Control-X, it will be copied to the clipboard. And when you use Control-V, it will be pasted from the clipboard. Whatever content you copied to the clipboard will be pasted from that clipboard. And quick access is another important or very useful Windows feature. So you can see here, I have added some, I have added some folders to the quick access. Here I can see, so that I can quickly go to this folder instead of navigating to G drive or E drive or something. So I can quickly navigate to this folder like this. Suppose I want to go to this folder, November 2021 batch. So I can quickly go like this if I added this to quick access. Let me quickly show you how to add a folder to quick access. Let me quickly show you that. Say for example, I have softwares, all my softwares and downloaded to this folder. Here you can see E drive software, right? I have JMeter software over here. Let's say I want to access this folder every time. I frequently use this. JMeter, right? So instead of going to E drive software JMeter, what I can do is I can go to home and I can use the shortcut pin to quick access. On the top left, you see one icon, right? Pin to quick access. So once you use that, once you click that, now you can see this folder is added to quick access, right? The next time if I want to go to that folder, I simply open a Windows Explorer and click on this shortcut, right? And I can go to that folder directly. Clear guys? So this is the purpose, or this is the advantage with quick access. And these are all Zoom meeting shortcuts. So Alt-A, as you will be using Zoom meeting for these trainings, please, I want to cover these also. Alt-A is for mute or unmute. Alt means change, right? And A for audio. If you want to mute or unmute, you can use this shortcut Alt-A. If you want to turn on or off, turn your video on or off, you can use Alt-V. V for video, A for audio, right? If you want to temporarily unmute, suppose you are muted now, everyone is muted now. So if you want to speak for a while and you have temporarily unmute, you can press and hold the space bar, right? So as Zoom meeting is being used in many corporates, like I want to explain these shortcuts also, guys. And if you want to open the chat window, you can use Alt-H like this. No, sorry. When you should be on Zoom meeting. So type Alt-H, right? And you get the chat window like this. You are able to see the chat window, right? Guys, are you with me? I'll close in 5 minutes, guys.
Yes.
Right? Alt-H is for chat, and if you want to share your screen, you can use Alt-S. Okay. So when you are, when you share your screen, right? Generally, if you want to share your screen and if you want to mute or unmute, these shortcuts will be very much helpful, because when you are sharing your screen, this Zoom meeting control panel will not be displayed. It will be in the background, running in the background. So you can use these shortcuts will be helpful. And coming back to this, so these are I covered few important Windows shortcuts, and everyone should learn like Excel basics and Word basics, MS Word and Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Word basics. Now how to learn that? Every software engineer should know this, not only test engineers, guys, every software engineer should know this. So how to learn these Excel basics, right? Let me quickly show you and I'll close the session for today in 2 minutes. Once you open Excel, right? So click on blank workbook and go to help. There will be some link for training. Yeah, here it is. Under help, you have something called show training. Click on that and you will have some videos on Excel basics. So please go through the Excel videos, because in the initial 10 days, you will not be having any assignments. Please utilize this time for learning this Excel basics and Windows basics also. Let me launch MS Word, Microsoft Word, right? And again, go to help, and here also you have an option show training. So please go through these videos for Windows basics. How to write and edit, how to format text, how to lay out pages. Please go through these videos. These are Windows basics and these are Excel basics that every software engineer should know. Clear, guys?
Sir, help option is not there in my Excel.
Maybe you are using a old version. That's why that option will be there in some other place. If you don't find it, you can search in YouTube. Right? There are thousands of videos in YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. Search for some Excel basics videos and go through them, please. If you don't see that option on your machine. Right? And the next thing is, like, you have to know static IP and dynamic IP. So I will cover these concepts in the coming up sessions as well. Stop it here for today. It's already we crossed almost 1 hour. Right? So for the first 10 sessions, I'll be taking 1 hour per day. So once geometry started, I will be taking like 1.5 hour per day. I'll stop it here, guys. So please, for today, this would be your assignment for you. Please go through, learn some Excel basics and MS Microsoft Word basics. I will add all your email IDs to my Google Classroom, and I will be sharing assignments. You'll be getting a mail, guys. Okay. So please work on those assignments on a daily basis. As I already have your email IDs, I will create one Google Classroom and I will add your email IDs to that, and I will be sharing assignments over there. Please go through that. Please look into your. Whenever you get that mail, please work on the given assignments on a daily basis. And thanks for joining, and have a nice day. Like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm just doing some self-promotion, guys. So these are my course contents for LoadRunner and JMeter. I'll share this course contents if you want. Right? So this is my JMeter course contents document. These are the topics that I will be covering in scripting. I'll start from SDLC, software development lifecycle, testing lifecycle and all this, and what is performance testing. So, and I will include once scripting is completed, I will be covering advanced JMeter concepts as well. Let me quickly show you what exactly are you looking for.
Just checked what are the levels we are going to cover, because I'm not good in JMeter.
Okay, so I'll share this course contents to you. May I know who is this?
Rishad.
Okay, yeah. So I'll share this course content to you. So please go through it. I'll be covering Bean Shell scripting as well. I'm just checking where I mentioned that. So I'll be covering so JMeter distributed testing with master and slave setup, JMeter API testing, JMeter integration with InfluxDB Grafana. Okay, I will update that. I will be covering Bean Shell scripting as well.
Okay, and we'll be closing almost 1.5 hours, 1.5 month, right? So
yes, so 10 to 15 days for performance testing basics, and then 1 month for JMeter. 1 month exclusively for JMeter.
Okay.
And these are my LoadRunner course contents, guys.
On weekends we won't be having class, right?
Weekends I will be having sessions for on real-time project training. Those who opted for placement assistance, I will be taking, I will be, covering like real-time project training, means scripting and test executions on real-time projects, wherein I'll make everyone to prepare a test plan, requirement gathering, test plan preparation, and scripting executions on a real-time application. So that I am doing currently on weekends.
Okay.
And these are the load runner course contents, as you can see here. I'll share this in the WhatsApp group. You can have a look at it. JMeter, that is an old document. So I think I should be having an updated one. I will share the updated one. Yes. Any other queries, guys?
So what is the fees for?
And one more thing, I have, I am working on mobile performance testing now. So I will update that also in the course contents, JMeter course contents. I'm including that mobile performance testing in from the previous batch. So yesterday only I gave one session on mobile performance testing for the previous batch, right? So we are still working on it. Like I'm still taking sessions on that. So I'll be covering mobile performance testing as well. Yeah, someone is asking something. Sorry that I have interrupted you. Yes, someone is asking something. Shravani, is it Shravani or Yamuna?
Yamuna, sir.
Yeah, tell me, what is your question?
Yeah, sorry, sir. What is the fees for JMeter alone?
JMeter is 10K, including advanced JMeter concepts, bin shell scripting and mobile performance testing. It's 10K.
Okay, sir.
So under JMeter, I will cover performance testing fundamentals for 10 to 15 days. JMeter and then mobile performance testing with JMeter. JMeter integration with open source tools like InfluxDB, Grafana, and Elasticsearch and Kibana. So I'll be covering that in this JMeter and also certification. So I missed that, sorry. So I'll make everyone clear JMeter certification from BlazeMate University. So most of my trainees are certified in JMeter. Okay, let me quickly show you that. I have some certificates shared by my students from previous batches. So I'll make everyone clear this JMeter certification, JMeter Pro certification from BlazeMate University. Most 90% of my students complete this JMeter certification also. So this will be this training also will be part of that JMeter training in that 10,000. Is it clear? Any
Yes,
other
sir.
queries before we close the session for today?
Please activate my screen, sir. I'm sharing the screen.